Hey, I'd like to start another series called Raw Encounters. Now, if you take the word raw, R-A-W, and spell it backwards is war, W-A-R, war encounters. I myself have not been in military, and I myself have never, quote, been in anything called war, but I want to tell you about individuals that I have met over many, many years, and some of the things that they have mentioned to me to try to show you that, indeed, yes, war is a hoax. But I will tell you, in my words, the stories that were told to me, and you can do with them what you want, but I'm not advocating the reality of death or anything along those lines. I'm just going to tell you about people that I have met and my encounters, my raw encounters, or war encounters. All right, so let me begin with myself. Most likely, I might be just a little bit older than some that are listening, but I'm not sure. Based on some of my statistics, I think it's showing me that if you're listening to me, you might be pretty close in age to me. But I grew up in the mid to late 50s and into the early 60s, and by the time the late 60s come along, I'm more towards, I don't do this anymore, but in my growing up, I had toy soldiers like the ones you see in front of you. In fact, those might actually be some of the ones that I had, because I tried to get vintage ones on the screen. And I would say I was brought up with what I would call war programming. At the time, young boys had a war programming and young ladies had a princess programming. By that I mean that a lot of the shows on television, a lot of what you read and heard, was kind of like training you for the next war and training the young ladies to be the next housewives and have children. Back in those days, that was the role model for young ladies growing up, young girls and young ladies, and they didn't have the current role models that are before them right now. But for me, it was about war and soldiers, and often we'd get soldiers and go in the backyard and play war. And I remember one time we played war and we were throwing rocks at the soldiers, and my friend, my neighbor, threw a rock, missed the soldiers, and hit me right in the head, and I started to bleed, and I went in the house. I remember that very vividly because we wanted to simulate war. We wanted it to be real, so to speak. So we threw rocks at these soldiers, and I got a good rock right in the head. And maybe that's what's wrong with me. I never recovered from the rock in the head. I didn't have a helmet on like these soldiers do in front of you. Okay? So I actually kind of remember that too. But these toy soldiers that are in front of you are what I played with as I grew up. So I was being conditioned for war. I was being programmed. Now, I was being programmed very subtly. And a lot of the shows I watched on TV were war shows. Back then, Second World War had ended, and the 50s and early 60s and everything were inundated with a lot of television programs and a lot of movies out and even books out about the Second World War. So I grew up with a sort of a war programming. Now, I never went into service at all, but just for the purposes of this video, I just want to stop right there and basically say that there is a programming that goes on. And the two basic programmings I think that were happening at the time of my childhood and on into early youth were the males were headed to be in military and headed for war, and the young ladies were headed for stardom as a princess to found a home and keep a home and have children. Now, that might be a little bit of an oversimplification, but generally speaking, I think it was true, and a lot of it has been done very subtly through toys and the media, the television programs, and also even what you're taught in school, and also what your parents were saying or said at the time. So programming is real, and I'm not too sure of all the programs that are being done for children right now because I'm a little bit out of that, but I can speak with a little bit of authority about my growing up and my encounter with war in a theoretical sense, or in a drama sense, or in a make-believe sense, by the use of toy soldiers and toy tanks and toy guns and things like that. So I'm going to end this video, and I'm going to put some more on this series that I call Raw Encounters. And again, just take raw, R-A-W, and go backwards with it, and that spells war. Thank you.